Hey, Facebook family, welcome to a Facebook Live. Today, I'm going to answer the question, what's the number one thing that big business doesn't want you to know about health? I was motivated to do this because I met a guy on the weekend, a farmer. I'm up at Anna Bay. My mum has a little holiday house up here. It's just up past Newcastle, and I saw a sign for Tanilva Bay farmers markets on Saturday morning as I was driving up here on Friday. So on Saturday I drove to the markets, and it was a pretty simple little market. They didn't have any organic food. There was only one guy selling vegetables. They were super cheap, but they didn't look the freshest. So I just bought a few things from him, and then I was driving back and I saw a big paddock full of horses and sheep and chickens, like hundreds of chickens on this big paddock, and it was a really green, lush paddock. And it was interesting because last week I started to make a YouTube video about eggs, about the difference between cheaper eggs and better eggs, so keep an eye out for that. But I thought I'll go in and I'll see if this guy sells eggs, because he didn't have any signs up, and there are plenty of people around with signs saying, eggs for sale. It's a pretty rural area. So I went in and I spoke to the guy. I said, yeah, I do sell eggs. I don't have any signs up, but I do. And I sell them at farmers markets in Newcastle and to restaurants. And we got chatting. I told him what I do, and about the video I was making and stuff. I asked if I could interview him. He was in a bit of a hurry, so he had to go. But he ended up showing me around the property for about an hour anyway, and having a really good chat. And this guy had been a farmer for 30 years. He'd had this property for nearly that long. He was certified organic for 24 years, but it got too expensive, and there were a lot of bureaucratic reasons why he gave up the certification. And he had also been on the board for the Small Farmers Association of New South Wales, or something like that. So he was a very clued in guy and really passionate about farming and doing it well. And I had a good chat to him just about the struggles that someone who's trying to create healthy food is going through. One of the things was that they're making things more and more stringent. So he had to build a special processing room on his property, which is where he sorted the eggs and cleaned them and checked that they weren't cracked. The walls had to be X amount of thickness, and they kept the food authority keeps changing the specifications every year. So he's having to build new things, and it might be $500 or $1,000 here or there, but for a farmer who doesn't make a lot of money, it's a big amount. And for the big companies, it's really easy to adhere to those rules, but to small farms, it's not. So small farmers are struggling, especially people doing organic food, because it costs more. It's so much more time consuming, and there's a lot more human hours needed to put in, and people aren't always willing to pay the extra money for organic food and say, oh, it's not worth it, and pesticides are safe anyway. Pesticides aren't safe. The Monsanto just lost a court case and had to pay out $389 million US to a guy who was proven has got cancer from working with glyphosate, which is Roundup, which is just about everywhere. Roundup is in everything. They spray it on our kids' school playgrounds to get rid of weeds. It's everywhere. Our world is so bombarded with crap, and it's starting to, Roundup is one example. It's starting to become obvious, if it wasn't already, that this is a dangerous thing. The same thing happened with DDT in the 70s. DDT was around since the Second World War, and it was deemed as being safe, and that it would only kill insects. And it wasn't. It was used on just about everything for 25 years, or for 20 years, until they noticed that all the bald eagles in the US were dying, and they were near extinction. And then they realized that bioaccumulation happens, which is where the insects eat the DDT, small birds eat the insects, rodents eat the insects, then the eagles eat the small birds and the rodents, and they get super high levels of the DDT in their system, and they die. a lot of the time things are tested in a test tube and not actually tested in an open, complex system like an ecosystem or like a body. My point is there are a lot of things in our environment and in our food that's not safe. So eating organic food is really important. So what's the number one thing big business doesn't want you to know about health? First of all, I want to quote Jiddu Krishnamurti, who says, "It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." And a lot of people would argue with me that we are a profoundly sick society. I do believe we're a pretty sick society. We might have a longer life expectancy than what we've had in the past, marginally, but it's not quality life that people are living. You know, the majority of people from their 40s and 50s are on prescription drugs. A lot of people who are incredibly elderly are, put into nursing homes or put into care and aren't really happy. We have higher rates of chronic disease than ever. We've got new diseases, cancer, heart disease, things like that were barely there 100 years ago. We're seeing higher rates of diabetes than ever. Type 2 diabetes is pretty much a new disease as well. Type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune issue to do with the pancreas, has been around for hundreds or thousands of years. But type 2 diabetes is very much a disease of excess. It happens from eating too much sugar and carbohydrate, not being able to process it properly, and becoming resistant to the insulin that's in your system. I mentioned chemicals. There are thousands and thousands of chemicals in our system, in our food system and in our bodies. They have tested the umbilical blood, the blood from the umbilical cord of newborns, and there's 150 chemicals in there. All of those chemicals weren't there 200 years ago, I'd say. There's 129,000 new chemicals floating around in our air that weren't there 100 years ago. So we've changed our environment so drastically. The other thing is stress. Stress has always been there. Stress is important. Stress is absolutely necessary for life. When they send astronauts into outer space, their bones and muscles atrophy because they don't have the stress of gravity. We need stress. In nature, we have, like, I don't want to say low level, but we have intense acute stresses that will only last a short amount of time. So the fight or flight system, which is designed, it's the sympathetic nervous system, which is designed to mobilize energy, to inhibit digestion and assimilation and growth and repair, is designed to get us out of danger now at all costs. And prior to modern medicine and police forces and military and stuff like that, most encounters would end pretty quickly. Within 3 or 4 minutes, you'd be either dead or you'd be away from danger. So nowadays we have low-level chronic stress all the time. So our body's in a constant state of fight or flight. And that means digestion, assimilation, and healing processes are pretty much inhibited all the time. So then we have all these new chronic diseases. We have extremely high levels of chronic stress. We have food that's not supporting us optimally. We have chemicals in the environment and in our bodies that require even more nutrition than what we needed in the past in order to detoxify it, and we don't have it. And then we have a medical system that's completely based on acute trauma. So acute trauma is like if you have an infection, you take antibiotics, right? If you have a bad enough infection, you want to take antibiotics to kill that bacteria so that it doesn't eat you, so that it doesn't inhibit vital functions and you die. Thanks, Sasha. And acute trauma is when you get hit by a car, you got shot, or you get stabbed, you need to be operated on. So for those things, I think medicine is a miracle, really. If I was shot or stabbed, I'm very happy that I'm alive nowadays and that we have modern medicine. But where medicine fails us is with chronic health, chronic disease, because doctors are trained in disease management and in trauma management, not in health. there's a very big difference between disease management and health. If you have a disease, do you want it to be managed, or do you want to be healthy? Because health and disease can't exist in the same place at the same time. Now, a lot of doctors are good. A lot of doctors are learning about health or do know about health, and some of the greatest minds in health are doctors. So it's not like all doctors are crap. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying the majority of medicine is disease management. So we're kind of disempowered by that system as well. We're disempowered to think that if there's something wrong with us, we need to go to a doctor, and by all means, if there's something wrong and you feel you need to go to the doctor, go to the doctor. I'm not saying not to go to the doctor, but there needs to be some sense of responsibility as well, and we kind of have that taken away from us. We're disempowered, and things that make a really big difference to your health and to whether you are experiencing symptoms or not, really simple things like getting enough sleep, drinking enough water and good quality water, breathing properly, eating good quality food and food that's right for your body, managing stress. These things are incredibly powerful, and when we start to learn how to use these tools, we're empowered with our health. So the number one thing big business doesn't want you to know about health is that you are responsible for your own health, and that when you start to really take responsibility and own what's happening, you're empowered and you can change things. Nobody ever got better from any chronic health problem or anything with a disempowered mindset. The people who do survive cancer and some of those like really scary diseases, I do the inverted commas because I think cancer is another thing we've really been there's so much fear around it. Yeah, we've been conditioned to outsource responsibility, Andrew. Absolutely, man. Like, so we've had power taken away from us, and the thing is, to take responsibility back means to learn about your own body. So, I was going to talk about hormesis. Hormesis is a low-level stress that elicits a positive adaptation to your body. So the things like cold exposure or cold immersion, like all the Wim Hof ice baths and breathing and cold showers and stuff like that. Also fasting, even oxygen deprivation. So when I was in India, I studied with a guy who had a PhD in pranayama, breathing. It's some of the yogic breathing techniques, and his PhD thesis had been on stem cell proliferation that happens when your oxygen saturation drops low enough. So even doing some of the pranayama breath holds and getting oxygen saturation down low enough is a hormetic stress that has a positive adaptation on your body. Exercise is another one, but so these are really important tools that we have for health, but we need the resources to recover from those. Fasting can be really damaging if you don't have the resources to recover. If your adrenals are stressed and you stop eating food, you're going to create a lot of excess stress on your body, and it might end up being at your deficit, really. So take responsibility for your own health. How do you do that? First thing is to have a job that you love, or a vocation that you really love, not just something that you like or is okay, something that you really love. If you're spending a minimum 40 hours a week at work, what's that? That's like 40 times 50, is that 1,000 hours a year, or 2,000 hours a year? Over 50 years or 40 years, it's a lot of hours that you spend working. Your mind has a direct effect on your body. Mind is an embodied process, meaning whatever you are thinking or feeling, your body is experiencing as real. And we're not here to do shit we don't like. We're here to enjoy life and to do something we feel passionate about. So I would encourage everybody to find something they really love doing, or create a business out of their passion. if you can't find a job that you like doing, then you don't have to work for anyone else either. And it's a scary thought for a lot of people to change job, especially if you've been in that job for a long time, especially if you have a family and people who are you're responsible for. But you know, if you put the intention out there that you want to do something different, or at least if you don't know what your passion is, put the intention out there to find what it is that you're passionate about. Find what your mission is and what your purpose is for being here on earth, because that's probably the most important thing you can do for your health, really. Second thing is to get to know your body. Get to know what foods it likes, what foods it doesn't like, how much sleep you need, what sort of exercise you need, how you feel when you're dehydrated, how you feel when you're underslept. Start to get to know your body. Get a dialogue going with it. You know, one of the biggest problems I see nowadays is everyone's telling their body what to do all the time rather than listening to what it has to say. You know, when your body says, oh, I'm tired, rather than go, okay, I'm going to listen and go and sleep, you go, oh, have a bloody coffee. You know, if you're not sleeping, take a sleeping pill. If you've got a headache, take an aspirin or a Panadol. You know, we don't listen. Go, I've got a headache. Okay, what's going on? If you ask, your body will give you answers. You know, headaches are often from stress, from clenching your jaw, or from dehydration, or from There's always a reason for it, and it's not a lack of Panadol. So learn to listen to your body. Next thing is source your food impeccably, or grow your own food, even if it's just a herb garden. You know, having a connection with the earth. Going and talking to Terry, the farmer, on Saturday, and seeing he had all these egg chickens and meat chickens. He had all these veggies. He was growing lettuce and rocket and fruit and a whole bunch of other stuff. And when I go to get water, I go to the mountains to a spring to fill up with water. And you know, those practices, they're not just about getting good food or getting good water. It's about connecting with the web of life, you know, realizing that we are connected to the web of life through our food. And when we were dependent on companies like Woolworths and Coles to give us that life force, we're going to suffer. Like, they don't give a shit about your health. You know, they only give a shit as much as you do. You know, when health becomes a priority for people, they start to invest in it. Like you'll see now, you can buy kombucha and organic food and stuff at Woolworths and Coles, but they've also got this bloody health star rating, which is absolute bullshit, which if you follow, you will get sick and probably, you know, it's shocking that we have to try so hard to be healthy. The bottom line is there's no one else, there's no doctor or expert or anybody who knows your body better than you do, right? You just need to listen to it. Sourcing food is a way to connect with your body. It's fun too, you know. I love going to the markets and talking to farmers. You know, the most eye-opening thing you can do is go to a farmer's market, talk to a farmer, and then go to the farm and see where the food is grown. You know, this egg guy, Terry, was awesome. A few years ago, we went to a few egg farms when I was with Origin of Energy. A couple of them, even free-range farms, weren't bloody free-range. They'd have a barn with 10,000 chickens running around in the barn with doors that go outside to 100-meter by 10-meter concrete strip, and not one bird out there. You know, and they still label them as free-range. So going and seeing the food that you're eating and where it's grown is a super duper empowering activity. So is growing food, even if you just have a herb garden. Just grow a herb garden. You know, even just they stick a skewer in an avocado seed and leave it on a plate, leave it in a cup with some water in there. Just seeing like an avocado seed growing is going to connect you more. Get a really good water filter. Get one that gets rid of chlorine and fluoride and everything possible, or go to a spring and get water from there. These things are really important too. You know, I constantly argue with people about the safety of tap water. You chlorine is not meant to be in our water. Chlorine kills your gut microbiota. This is one of the biggest problems we see nowadays, is that the gut is the source of so many different disease processes. We're eating food that has antibiotics in it. We're taking antibiotics when we get sick, and we're drinking chlorinated water. So get a really good water filter. Learn detox practices. This is like saunas, infrared saunas. Eating green juices and green spirulina and chlorella and stuff. Coffee enemas are awesome. I know people aren't really open to that, but it's awesome. Learn to breathe properly. So this is massive, because our breath is tied into the fight or flight response, and we're in this chronic low-level state of stress all the time. Most people are going to be chronic chest and shoulder breathers, which actually breathes too much oxygen. The body needs carbon dioxide. In order for an oxygen molecule to move into a cell, it needs to have a carbon dioxide molecule to exchange with. Your lungs know this, and they'll work to keep oxygen and carbon dioxide at a certain balance. If you're breathing too much oxygen, your lungs will suck carbon dioxide from your blood to keep it balanced within your lungs. And then there's no carbon dioxide to exchange with at the cell. So most people are chronically hyperventilating, which actually starves the tissues of oxygen. So we need to learn to breathe properly, to slow breath down. I've done other videos on that. If anyone wants to watch, you can go to wisemoves.com.au and just go to the blog. Learn to breathe, especially during times of stress. Breathing is the key to shift from a future scenario state of mind to the present moment, get into your body and start to balance your physiology. That, and having a meditation practice, whether it's transcendental meditation or a mindfulness practice, being present with your body is going to strengthen the prefrontal cortex in your brain. The prefrontal cortex inhibits sends inhibitory signals to some of the other centers in your brain, like the amygdala, which is the fear center, which we're all running on all the time. So those are some ways that you can take responsibility for your health and keep big agro-business and big pharma shitty that you're not going to be accustomed to. So thanks guys, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.